I would like to acknowledge the Euro people who are the traditional custodians of this land on which I live. I would like to pay respect to the elders past and present of the Euro nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people listening to my story. When I decided to emigrate from Ireland to Australia at the age of 21, I naively expected the people of Australia to be white and middle to upper class. When I arrived, I soon discovered that Australia was multicultural and social class varied greatly. Having relatively no knowledge of Australian history, I soon developed a stereotypical image of Aboriginal people of Australia. I categorised them as having coloured skin, from low socio-economical backgrounds, having mental health problems, being dysfunctional and perhaps criminal and untrustworthy. With the commencement of the Master of Social Work course, I have gained insight into Australia's invasive colonial history and the negative impacts colonisation has had on Indigenous people and communities. I find myself interested to observe the extent to which colonisation has affected my local environment. I began to walk through my home suburb. I stimulate my senses to enable me to fully connect to the land with which I walk. I find an Indigenous species walk. Here I escape the sound of passing cars. Instead I hear birds singing and bushes swaying. I see trees and plants, all different varieties with different purposes. The evidence of colonised Australia is evident even within this walk, with the Strathfield Council sign claiming ownership of the land. Colonisation is further evidenced in the surrounds of the walk, with housing settlements and the many races of people, with an obvious gap in the Aboriginal race within my community. Colonial laws which dispossessed Aboriginal people of their land, policies of protection and control, policies of removal and assimilation have broken many Aboriginal people, their communities, and weakened their culture, tradition and spiritual and physical connection with the land. This movement is the reason why I am struggling to find genuine acknowledgement to Aboriginal people, culture and country within my neighbourhood. As I walk through my workplace, I look for acknowledgement of traditional owners of the land. I am welcomed by an Indigenous flag, Aboriginal art on the wall, and the inclusiveness of legislation and strengths-based policies and practices which form the programme. I am thankful that I can be a part of a movement working towards breaking the cycle of intergenerational trauma and disadvantage. However, beyond the sight of my eyes, I can see a government-funded, evidence-based programme which acts as a form of coercion in forcing young mothers to conform to westernised notions of good parenting, appropriate behaviour and the need for formal education, as opposed to the Aboriginal tradition of passing stories, songs and messages. The individualistic nature of these evidence-based approaches do not adequately acknowledge Indigenous history, culture and diversity, as they fail to take account of structural inequalities, dynamics of power and control, and the relationship between Indigenous Australia and the rest of Australia. This oversight is evidence of continued deeply engraved attitudes of racial superiority within Australian governance and Australian society as a whole. Governmental focus through intervention and initiatives at individual level continues to take attention away from the need for change in attitudes and approaches at structural and institutional level in how Australia acknowledge and appreciate traditional owners of the land. The experience of Aboriginal people within Australia is not dissimilar to the experience of Irish nationalists within the north of Ireland. Having this insight, I realise that I have been hypocritical in my previous judgments. I am thankful that I have been enlightened, and I now see Aboriginal people as an ally, who, like the Irish, have had to fight for their land, culture and rights. I admire the will of political activists within the Aboriginal and the Irish communities who advocate for the people's right to self-determination. I hope that one day the rhetoric of decolonisation will gain greater substance and its principles will be more evident within the Australian society.